Music is really important to me, and I spend a lot of time researching, discovering new artists, discovering old artists that have left the world, sadly, but have left amazing music behind. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at some of the older video game music that has kind of been passed over, that doesn't get talked about. A lot of people always talk about Koji Kondo, the Nintendo stuff, Metroid, all that. They talk about Castlevania, they talk about Mega Man, they talk about the Final Fantasy games and all the Square Enix games and all that sort of thing. But there's so much good music out there. So we're going to cover 10 of, I think, the best chiptune albums that you have never heard. First off, let's pay some bills and also get your copy of Windows activated. This is what I use, so roll that. Look at that ugly activate Windows thing. Is this what your Windows 10 looks like? When you try to go and change your color scheme or your background, does it say, oh, sorry, you got to activate? We need this dark theme. You can go buy a retail CD key if you want to. It's going to cost you over $100 typically, maybe a lot, maybe $150. And if you're buying Office, it's going to be a lot more than that. Or you can do like I do and grab an OEM CD key. It's the exact same product when you buy an OEM key. It's just, this is the price that the big corporations and stuff pay when they buy them and put them on laptops or whatever, when they buy them for their offices. So everyone should get the same price, and that's why I always buy OEM keys. And I do it on whokeys.com. We have Windows 11, and you can also get Office. Pick the version you want. I'm going to get Windows 10 Pro. By using coupon code TS25, you can get 25% off these prices here. So go ahead and put TS25 in here as your coupon code, hit apply, and then you can see we can get Windows 10 Pro for $14.85. Once you're finished, if you want to access your key, you click on your name on the top right, click on User Center, and you'll see My Purchase Orders. Right here, you'll be able to view the keys that you've purchased just by clicking on View Keys and Codes. Then you will see your code right here. Just go ahead and copy this code, press Start, type Activate. You'll see activation settings come up. Click on that. Then click change product key. Right there you can paste in your code and hit next, and then you will be activated. It's very simple. And while you're on WhoKeys, be sure to check out some of their new stuff like their wireless mice and mechanical keyboards. All right, now to the regularly scheduled video. All right, now the first thing I want to do is just quickly define what a chiptune is. If we're going to be talking about all of video game music, that is a much broader topic. Chiptunes are the bleeps and bloops, the pulses, the waves, and all that kind of stuff, but it's a little bit more than that because it kind of became a genre of video game music. So Nintendo, their stuff, you know, the stuff that really Koji Kondo was the pioneer there, it was mostly the bleeps and bloops and the wave sounds and just pulse modulation really, and then a noise channel. But then, you know, you had Sega, NEC, and Japan doing all kinds of stuff. They were using FM modulation, which gave them a lot more variety, but it also gave it that buzzy, almost heavy metal sound, which I love. So there's that. And then the Super Nintendo came out, and it was a little bit different still yet because what we had were actual samples of instruments and sound effects. A lot of times, people, you know, the developers would even take a regular old keyboard and they would play the notes and then sample those. So you would have like electric piano sounds, but sampled. And those are bit crushed enough, which means that they are compressed like crazy. They are compressed so much that we're also going to include that in chiptunes. And the last thing I want to include in this is MIDI, because I want to get a couple DOS games in here. I'm cheating a little bit, but MIDI were instrument libraries for your computer. And what was interesting about MIDI is each different sound card or each different computer would have a different library of instruments. And whenever the person wrote music for a computer, they would be like, all right, this is the cello, this is the guitar. And they had a standardized list. Thank you very much, Roland, for the standardized list of MIDI sounds. So whatever different sound card you had, it would have a different bank of sounds with vastly varying qualities. So sometimes you get stuff that sounds really cheesy, but then you take the same song and play it back on a better sound card and be like, whoa, night and day. So the PC games also had FM synthesis back then. So you had OPL from Yamaha. Yamaha does all the good FM synthesis stuff. And then you had like all kinds of different MIDI from either Microsoft or Roland or whatever sound module you have. So Arumana no Kiseki. I wanted to mention this one. This one has a bunch of really short songs. I almost left this one off the list, but the songs are so good and they're so catchy. Plus the style of the game is very Indiana Jones, so if you haven't heard of it or checked it out, I recommend grabbing the soundtrack. And if you see on the bottom of the screen, I do have the song listed along with the composer and a little bit of information there. So you can get all of that there. That way I won't have to try to stumble through some of these names because I'm not very good at Japanese yet. All right, now you see Castlevania's on the list here. So let's talk about Castlevania for just a minute. Now this is going to be the only big game I'm going to mention because you haven't heard this version of Castlevania. This is what you grew up with if you grew up in the West. You grew up with this. This is Castlevania 3. I believe it was Simon. No, Simon's Quest was part 2. This is just Castlevania 3. So let's listen to this for a second. Okay, so the American version just used the standard sound effects that came with the Nintendo Entertainment System. But over in Japan, they were like, okay, we've got this FM chip that they're using in the Genesis and a number of other consoles, this really awesome Yamaha FM chip. What if we put that FM chip on the cartridge so we can have a better soundtrack and better sound effects? And in Japan, they got this instead. Play another one. American version. Japanese. Last one. American. Song. Japanese. Yeah. Why is it so good? All right, so that's Castlevania. Now, let's go on to something that I bet many of you have never heard of or never played. That is Brandish. Brandish has my favorite soundtrack. And this is for the PC-98, which was an NEC computer that only came out in Japan, and it had vastly superior sound capabilities compared to a lot of the IBM and the IBM PC-compatible stuff from like Compaq and Gateway and everything. They really cared about sound. So they put these awesome Yamaha FM modules in their computers like the PC-88, the PC-98, PC-9801, this is a PC-9800. Such good music. I'm gonna play through just a couple of them. This is like the epic opening. Let's play another one. I'm gonna cut in. It just goes and it goes and it goes. They also released this game for the Super Nintendo, or the Super Famicom, box art. They got that awesome vertical box art. Their box art was much better over there in Japan than what we had here in America, but it is what it is. So the Super Nintendo version sounds a little different. Versus the PC-98. I prefer this version, but it's up to you. So that's Brandish. I think it's the best game on the list. But the next game is also my favorite soundtrack. And it's, I guess, an eroge game. So this is from Ryu Umamoto. He died at such an early age. Like, I can't believe how many amazing soundtracks he worked on. But he had a very good idea of exactly what to do with these FM sound chips to make amazing, eerie cyberpunk music. Some of my favorite soundtracks were made by Ryu Umamoto. So this is Xenon, Fantasy Body. On to a different song. I like to just like put this stuff on in the background while I'm working or cleaning or doing something. Just really chill atmospheric music. Give me like Blade Runner vibes and stuff like that. Alright, if you like the cyberpunk genre, highly recommend it. Alright, let's move on. Now, we all know about the newer Elder Scrolls games, but before that came a game with MIDI sound, Daggerfall by Eric Heberling. Now, the difference between the Daggerfall soundtrack and the newer games, as each game comes out, the sounds get more atmospheric and we get less of a melody. Usually good for like just being background stuff. But Eric Heberling, he wrote stuff that was really strong on the melody. These are tunes that stick in your head a little bit more than a lot of the newer stuff, in my opinion. Hear that DOS MIDI. Fun. And come on, everybody loves this song. The Daggerfall soundtrack is a lot of fun. If you cannot handle the old school MIDI sound effects, just know that you can get different versions of this soundtrack. You can get newer updated versions that have like more symphonic sounds and stuff like that. Now let's move on to another system, the Sharp X68000. And this has a slightly improved Yamaha sound chip, so it's going to sound better than like the Sega Genesis or the PC9801 from NAC that we listened to just a second ago. And this game in Japan also featured many eroge games. This is one of them, Dragon Knight. If you don't like nudity, don't play this game. But the soundtrack has no nudity.
And it goes hard.
So that soundtrack is really good. If you can get your hands on it, I highly recommend you do. I'll show you where to get a bunch of these once the video is finished. Now let's move on to a Super Nintendo game that was, again, not released in the United States. This is Dragon Slayer. The gameplay looks interesting if you like JRPG style stuff. But the soundtrack, again, really peaceful stuff too. Another amazing album that I don't think a lot of people have heard, and I think I listened to mostly this and Brandish recently while I was building. I don't know if you can see that back there in the background. You can see the Pirates of Barracuda Bay, that giant set right there. It took me a couple of days of, well, a couple of sittings, I guess, to build it, but yeah, I just kind of listened to those two soundtracks over and over and over, and I was happy. It was a happy few days. Now let's get on to something that is a little weird. This is not the box art. This is the IBM version. The sound on this, whatever, very whatever. However, the Super Nintendo version had a different soundtrack. But I'm using the cover from this, even though it's the Super Nintendo version, because come on, can you get any better than this? This is like one of the best, come on, one of the best covers out there. Drakkhen, a PC and SNES game, one of the first Super Nintendo games to come out. This is the first-person RPG. They actually hired Gary Gygax to do some consulting. But this soundtrack has a lot of just kind of 80s style keyboard, electronic keyboard that they sampled. So it has a totally different sound. It doesn't sound like a medieval game, but a lot of these melodies are super chill, very minimal, and just great background music. Chill. Chill album. What about this one? Yeah, that's a good idea of what Drakkhen is. It's not for everybody. I don't think. It's maybe too chill and not enough going on for some people, but we've got you covered on that end, coming right up. So, if you liked the Master Blaster game, well, let me tell you, there's a better soundtrack than Master Blaster, made by the same people over at Hudson, and it's called Journey to Silius. Now, Journey to Silius was a game that was supposed to be a Terminator game, but they lost the license, so they just went ahead and made the game, and they kept the music and everything, and they ended up with this really epic score. Didn't know you could do this much with the Nintendo. When I heard this, the way they fade the notes in and out, the way the notes come in with a really slow attack, the crescendos, the vibrato, they did so much with such a limited palette to work with the Nintendo. I gotta be honest and tell you that I don't love a lot of the Nintendo music, but it's just too basic. But when it's good, it's really good. And Journey to Silius is an example of a team that really, really understands what can be done with the hardware. And it's a beautiful soundtrack, has a lot of good songs on it. Let's move on to some arcade. This is actually TurboGrafx, Neutopia. Kind of a Zelda-esque game. Infinitely listenable. So I really enjoy that music. And that's also made by Hudson Soft, but that was for the TurboGrafx 16 or the PC Engine if you're not in America. And now let's talk about another DOS game that is just ridiculously good. This DOS game, Rise of the Triad. A lot of people miss this game. This came out from, I believe, Apogee Software, which was later 3D Realms. And they were very close to id Software. They were in a similar area of the world. And Bobby Prince, you might know him as Robert Prince, but Bobby Prince did the music for Doom, and he did the music for a lot of those old games, and he also did the music for Rise of the Triad. And I think it's his best album that no one talks about. So let's hear a little bit of this ridiculous stuff. You're gonna recognize this if you've watched a few different YouTube Yep, this game was a little bit silly. All right, you're gonna recognize this song. I know you're gonna recognize this song. I'm gonna save that for the end. All right, Shin Megami Tensei. I have not played this game, but it is so metal. Now this is I believe the original. This is a PC Engine version of this game. So heavy. It's incredibly metal. So I don't know how it had any business being that metal. These also are the Persona games, if you're not familiar with Shin Megami Tensei. So that's what we're listening to here. These are the Persona games. All right, I think that's probably enough. I think that's 10. I haven't been counting. I just did 10 because it would be good for the algorithm to see the number 10 on top. But you know what? Let's do a few more that you probably haven't heard of because they're on the PC Engine. So yeah, let's do it. In that same vein, but a little bit more theatrical, was the arcade version of the Super Spacefortress Macross game from 1992. Another shoot 'em up. A lot of these shoot 'em up arcade games and PC Engine games, TurboGrafx 16 games, had such ridiculous over-the-top, very energetic stuff going on with their soundtracks, so I have a lot of fun with them. Time for an honorable mention. I didn't want to leave without mentioning this because this game has an amazing soundtrack. Completely hideous box art. But my problem with Lands of Lore is while the soundtrack is amazing, like a lot of it's just kind of boring nonsense noise, but the few songs that are actually full-on songs are really pretty. Like this one. How about this one? Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this. You know what? Let me recommend where you can get some of these things. First off, I do make music, and a lot of it was inspired by what you've just listened to. So if you like this kind of stuff, go check out my stuff. Why don't you? So it's over here on Bandcamp. I'll just leave the link in the description. But again, it's very inspired by what we've just been listening to. Now, there's a few different places you can go to check out music. If you want to grab songs here, you can go over to Zophor's Domain. There's that. What else do we have here? We also have this. I'll leave these links in the description. VGM rips, and you can go get video game sound rips. You can just go through here and look through like stuff that's top packs. Okay, let's this one. Cool. You goddamn badhead. last boss. That's an amazing title. So anyway, you can come over here and grab different soundtracks. You can just chill at home and listen to the different video game soundtracks on your own. And then I use Foobar as my player because inside Foobar there are preferences and you can come and grab components that will allow you to listen to the native audio files. I've got all these different inputs and stuff, game menu player. So there's all these decoders. You can go onto Foobar's website and download. They're very easy to install. And then you can play the native audio files because you see like, and this is my folder of all the Drakkhen music. You can see the file types are SPC files and they're like 65 kilobytes each. They're tiny, tiny files. So these are just the native Super Nintendo files. They've been ripped from the Super Nintendo, and that's what you get. And we've got something else here. Maybe that's MIDI VGZ files. These are the native files that came with the, well, these aren't exactly Nintendo files, but VGZ files are kind of a universal file that a lot of people are using to rip these things. So you can go and use the Foobar player and then be able to play these different things that you download from these websites. Wonder what this one is. Probably MP3. No, VGZ files again there for Shin Megami Tensei. Alright, so that was a bit of fun. Hope everybody had fun. Hope you found some new music to listen to hang out and just play and chill and unwind. Feel a little bit of nostalgia for things that you didn't even know about. If you have other albums that are kind of under the radar, not the mainstream ones that you want to, share, please do so in the comments. I would love to check those out. Thanks to everybody for watching. Please hit the bell and stuff because nobody gets notified. And we can't have that. So click on the bell or whatever the hell you do. See you.